Set, watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Dive. Washington Commanders morning show. I'm your host of Trap or Dive podcast, Mual. I see you in the chat. Sam first to the chat. Good morning. Good morning to everybody that's watching live. As always, man, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Hit that like button as well, help us keep things going over on this Trap or Dive YouTube channel. As far as the algorithm, whatever that stuff means. But nah, happy hump day, middle of the week. We got a couple more days until game day, man. It's been a fun postseason so far. For the obvious reasons, Washington's winning. You make it out of the wild card round. You're the only road team to win in wild card round. You stand out. You're the first of two underdogs to win, with the Rams winning on Monday night. That is exciting. You'll win on the last play of the game. That is some people, depending on how old you are, you may need some heartburn medicine or some anxiety pills or weed, that dope, or some alcohol. But you're in it nevertheless. And I think for Washington, man, that's probably one of the best things that we've been able to be a part of for a long time, is just the continuous, exciting, thrilling games where Washington comes out on top. That's what I love. And I know that's what the fan base is loving right now. I know some people make the jokes about, like, I wish it could be easier. Well, guess what? I think everybody do. But we passed that point in the season. We ain't playing the Carolina Panthers no more. We're not playing the Cleveland Browns no more. We're not playing the Arizona Cardinals no more. We're not playing the Tennessee Titans no more. We just played the number 4 seed. Sorry. Were we the 5th seed? No, we weren't. We just played the number 3 seed. And we're about to play the number 1 seed. Am I mad right? 4 played to 5. 3 played to 6. Yeah. All right, my math right. Had to pause for a second. I was like, is LA? I thought LA ain't had a better record, but they didn't. They the 4 seed. Okay. So that part of the schedule, the cakewalks, is over. You got Detroit up next. You ain't getting no cakewalk. You playing the top dog. The team undeniably with more talent on paper than you. They are several years into their rebuild already. Let's wake up. Let's get excited for the challenge that's in front of us. And let's see how they feel on the road in a real hostile environment, not Tampa Bay, where we flooded the streets. We was in that job. We took over. Like, by all accounts, we took over. Let's see how Washington do in Detroit and see how they stand up. You know what I love, though? And this is what we're going to tap into first. Let me bring up the articles. Let me bring up the news clips. I said the news clips. The video clips. All right, hold on. Let me see if I saved all of them. And I want to see if y'all pick up the theme and the people that's speaking. Morning, Trappers. What up, Hawk? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Washington has to come in there with the spirit of we are the time. You know what I meant to say? I meant to follow up. You know what's crazy? I did not forget your question, Hulk. You asked about David Bakhtiari. Uh, and the answer is yes, it is too late. We ain't that ain't nobody out there like the rosters are set. Ain't no Bakhtiari coming in to save us. Ain't no Von Miller, no Miles Garrett, no Superman on the defensive end coming to save us. Ryan Kerrigan, he ain't shooting up his old stiff ass. He ain't coming in to save us. All right, let's go ahead and run a couple clips. Let's see if you pick up a theme from some of these players that had their pressers or their locker room scrums from yesterday. This is the first up is De'Ami Brown. We're gonna let his run. It's 30 seconds, so we're gonna let his run all the way through.
A game like you had against Tampa Bay, how does De'Ami having a game like you had against Tampa Bay, how does that build confidence for you, going forward in this game against Detroit?
Oh man, it's just staying level headed. At the end of the day, at the end, I have to perform the way I need to. That past game was the past game. It's over with. It's time to go on to the next.
Most of the people in that building in Detroit are going to be against you. How much juice do you guys take from that of being maybe the enemy in a sense going into that territory?
Man, we ain't even worried about all that. We just want to go out there and play. We have one goal right now, and that's to get the win.
De'Ami, having a game like you had.
So that's one player, De'Ami Brown. Let's go ahead and run to another player right quick. See if I find him. Oh, this is a long one. All right, so this is Deron Payne. He actually talks about his injury, which is thankfully, like I said, put the club on his hand and keep it going. But this is Deron Payne. His is a little bit more lengthier. But let me try and find a couple more players so we can kind of get to it. But that was De'Ami. This is Deron.
First things, how's the finger, and what kind of limitations might that have for you in practice for the game?
Oh, no, I'm ready to go. Good to go.
Going up there in Detroit, they're the top seed for a reason, but you guys are also a good team as well. How do you kind of take maybe that underdog mentality up to Detroit and get a win?
Man, we done played a lot of tough games to the end here. I feel like we have the capability to just go blow for blow with anybody. We know what it takes to muscle out a win. So
they established the line of scrimmage, try to be a super physical team. How do you guys respond to that challenge? And does it something have to happen early for you guys to show them how different this week's going to be?
So we look at ourselves as a physical team too. So it's just going to be a battle and see who can be more physical. It's really not about like on paper stuff. It's about who's going to be best on Saturday. So we'll see.
Durham, what's it been like for you to kind of see the joy that you guys have brought this community, winning this franchise's first playoff game in nearly 20 years?
Man, it's been fun. There's been a lot of ups and downs here since I've been playing, but I've been having fun my whole career here, and just being able to win a bunch of games and try to make a run in the playoffs is exciting.
Have you been able to see at all, kind of like in the community, just people excited? And it has to be night and day from last year to this year, around this time especially.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of fans there, all excited. You can see everybody wearing their Commanders gear and just proud to be a part of the team.
Okay, let's go to Alameda Zacchaeus. I'm gonna do a couple more. But it is important just to hear, some of these players so we can kind of set the tone for Saturday night. I got a couple more players, so bear with me.
Simple question. How much fun are you guys having right now?
A lot. It's just a simple answer. A lot. It's been really fun to just be out there with my brothers and just go play ball and compete at a high level.
In this game, the Lions are the top seed in the NFC. Going into the season, they were a Super Bowl favorite contender. Do you, in a sense, feel like you guys have no pressure, in a sense? Like, a lot of people did not expect Washington to be in this position.
I mean, we don't really listen to the outside noise. Like, something that we just preached all year is like, none of that ever matters, whether they predicted us to win the Super Bowl or they predicted us to win 3 games. Like, none of that matters. It just matters what we have to do what we have to accomplish each day in order for us to go out there and get a win on Saturday.
DQ said something really cool on Monday of Jaden of like inside the helmet, like he's a killer. So when you're in the huddle, like when do you know like Jaden's in like that zone? Like is there something he does or sees? Like how do you know like he's kind of locked in?
That's just how he carries himself in game. Like he's a pretty goofy kid off the field if you've been around him. So like he likes to play around and stuff. But you just know on game day like it's just strictly business, and that's just what he's shown throughout this year.
Okay. It was a couple more that was speaking. Today is Wednesday, so they were speaking on Monday. And Vanilla for sure, Rams Commanders money line came through. Now, I wish I played it. Full transparency, I did not. I did have the under in the Commanders game. I told people 30-28, but I think it dawned on me that I kind of went out there a little bit too far. So I paid off on the money line. On the under. And I also did a three-team parlay for Sunday. I bet I had all three legs with the unders in all three games. So that came through, but all my other same game parlays didn't. So at the point in which Commanders game came on, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to put my bankroll on a two-leg money line jump. Though I wish I did if I had a little bit more healthier bankroll for the day. Because it definitely cashed, and Rams beat the dog bleep out of Minnesota. So good play. You was on that since Friday. Okay. But yeah, the three-leg parlay came through, so it replenished the account for a little bit. All right, so where am I at? All right, so there's other players that spoke. Sam Cosmi, John Allen, Frankie Louvu, Quan Martin. They spoke to the idea of being in a hostile environment and also understanding that, they are the underdog. Granted, Scott Abraham plays like the way his interview questions comes about, like he plays to the thing, he plays to the emotion of the players. That is his angles in how he invokes responses. Not that it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's like it's not necessarily always focused on the actual game and matchup. But all that being said, the players had a theme, and it wasn't about like a Super Bowl contender, and it wasn't about like making it to the Super Bowl. It wasn't about looking past Detroit, which you can't, like on the surface, like baseline level, you can't look past Detroit. They're the number one seed, but they're still locked in on what's in front of them and not what's out yonder. Like they're not worried about who they finna play on January 19th. They're not worried about that. So I think for Washington, the fact that they're still all in unison with the messaging about like we're worried about what's in front of us. We are locked in on Detroit. We want to get this win is a testament to like they're not jumping the gun just yet. Not after one playoff win, not after a wild card win. And I think that's an encouraging sign to know like nobody has jumped the gun of the people that's been interviewed. They understand the mission. And for Washington, you got a dog in front of you. Last night's episode against with Trapper Dive with AJ and Dre, we spoke a lot about or enough about Jahmyr Gibbs. We spoke about like how dangerous Jared Goff is in the pocket against the blitz. There's other elements to this offense and to that defense that is important. One thing that I did not mention yesterday that I thought was impressive for Detroit, that defense changed that defense is a different defense when Alex Anzalone is on the field. For a good portion of the season, I'm trying to pull up his. Let me see how many games he ended up missing. Where's his name at? Oh, here it is. So Anzalone missed. He played every game up until November 17th. So he ends up missing 7 games on the season, right? And if you notice, they was getting gashed, hemorrhaged, like you couldn't stop a nosebleed with Anzalone not in the game, right? During that time he was gone, they gave up a 500-yard game, 560 to be exact, 475 yards, and a 382-yard day. More impressively, that all happened in 3 consecutive weeks. So yeah. Now, granted, they did give up a couple more 400-yard games with Anzalone in there. But ultimately speaking, and one 500-yard game. I'm sorry, let me be clear. They gave up a 500-yard game too. But the difference that he makes is, because I remember him. What was it? How old is he in the league? I think he was a rookie that 2020. Oh no, he's older. So that's not the guy I'm thinking about then. He's good, but he's not the guy that I'm thinking about. Who's the guy that I'm thinking about? Is it Jack? Is Jack Campbell? Jack Campbell's still here. I like Jack. Jack's the guy that I'm thinking about. And he came out last year. Anyway, where am I getting at? Anzalone and Jack Campbell, like those two linebackers are still tough. And I think for those two in particular, you're talking about a team who on surface is the number 5 rush defense in the NFL, in the Detroit Lions. That's also because you don't have the opportunity to really run on them as much because you're trailing. And also their secondary sucks due to injuries, however you want to slice it. But those guys they're really tough in the middle. It's hard to run against them sometimes. And ultimately, that's the reason why people opt to pass it, whether they're trailing or not. Washington is in a situation where, I'm gonna get back to the offense in a second, and special teams, because I think that's something that we really need to touch on. Washington's in a position where you're going up against a similar defense in Detroit, like Tampa Bay, where you're gonna have to find a way to establish a running game, whether that's through the screens that you create, whether that's through the perimeter runs and misdirections. You're gonna have to find a way to get these guys moving. Now, there's a couple of plays. Let me see if I have these on my computer. I still didn't transfer any. Okay. So this is one play. This is an example. No. Okay. So this is one example of the screens that were like a substitute for the run game. And they did this throughout the night, right? Obviously, the motion from a split back to a 3-by-1 formation, and they throw into the blitz or to the blitz side. You get a plus numbers advantage of 4-on-2 with your blockers. You get 12 yards. But this is an example of how you supplement a poor run game, and you find other ways to get people to football. Funny enough, this screen ended up being a carry for Austin Eckler, I guess because he threw it backwards. So that screen ended up going for 14 or 12, excuse me. And shout out to Olamide Zacchaeus with the lead block essentially sealing Deion Jones out of the way. But plays like that is going to have to be the supplement to the run game against Detroit as well. And the reason why I was getting to, or what the reason why I was trying to get to that is because there's going to be, now I don't have the specific answer personally, but there's going to be some moments in this game where Detroit is prepared for those looks. They are a man defense. So I guess the question is, how do they disguise it? Because if they can disguise their intentions and like fool Jaden and Cliff, like those screenplays aren't going to be there. Or they may just have like, they may they may out physical the perimeter blockers. Like all of these kids, he just went to work on Deion Jones, a linebacker, but like he is undersized nevertheless. So Deion should have been embarrassed. But is Detroit going to let Washington do the same thing to them? And that's something that the players need to be aware of. They need to, like, the physical toughness needs to be matched from the get-go. And I don't doubt that they will. I don't doubt that they won't match the physical toughness, but it needs to be there off rip. And you need to make sure that your blockers continue playing for their teammates. So like, are they going to disguise Detroit their intentions? Because if you're in man coverage, it's going to make it like the number advantage. You ain't necessarily going to have it the same way that you had it against Tampa Bay. Or are they not going to like disguise it? And like, if they run man, they just going to show it either way. Because if they show it, it's going to be hard to run the screen regardless. So they don't have to necessarily trick Washington. They can just prevent the screens from happening. And also, like, how much does Aaron Glenn, how much respect does he have for the receiving core of Washington? The pass catchers is what I should say, because I'm talking about tight ends as well and running backs. How much respect does he have for him? If you man blitzing, or if you just sending man pressures, you know, it's going to be, the onus is going to be on these receivers to win ASAP. Obviously, you know, you got Jaden Daniels' legs. He can offset some of the pressure. But it's not going to be, it's not going to be a easy task against that defense. And that's obviously kind of the same case that we're talking about when we're talking about like the Buccaneers, that first game, right? But that's just one of the things. Like you can easily air it out against these guys too. So if you're talking about trying to find a run game or establish a run game, maybe they don't even waste their time with doing that, or maybe they do find somebody who's a little bit more effective in between the tackles. Now, granted, I wish I had. No, I ain't gonna do that because that's gonna take a little bit long. I was gonna pull the clip, but I had to do a little bit of work, so because I can't show my screen from the source that I watch my film. But there is some moments where like I want to visually show what missed block assignments does to the offense, because for as much trouble as Brian Robinson gets, nobody says anything about the other running backs who gets tackled for no gain or a loss of yards for some of the exact same reasons people yell at B-Rob for it. And 9 times out of 10, it's because of a missed block up front. Anyway, let me pause there, and then I'll get to I'm gonna get to special teams next, and then we'll talk about offense. Let me check in with the chat. Good morning, everybody that's listening live. What up, Ryan? Do you think it's possible we wanted to draft AD Mitchell and panic and select Ben Sinnott? No, they love Ben Sinnott. But what I do think is that they overdrafted him. I think I think the pre-draft process shot Ben Sinnott to the moon. So they felt with 3 second-round picks, I can get Ben and we'll be okay. So I don't think they wanted AD Mitchell. I think they wanted Ben. And I think that they just overdrafted him. I personally think they overdrafted him. I never had a problem if you selected Ben. I actually did have other tight ends in front of Ben for what Washington needed. And what Washington needed is what Zach Ertz has brought. So that's who I wanted in the draft. But they ended up getting Zach Ertz. It works out for this year. I have no problem with Zach Ertz coming in and doing his thing. But I didn't want Ben. And if they did get Ben, I would have expected Ben to be drafted later in the draft. Now, that's not to say that other teams wouldn't have grabbed him. I would have waited. Other teams may have drafted him around the same time frame that Washington got him, but I think they overdrafted him. But they loved him so much, so it didn't really matter. See, here you go, Hawk. Dan Quinn has to go in there and bully. Dan Quinn has to go in there and bully Detroit. It ain't the one thing Dan Quinn ain't worried about is Ben Johnson. He not worried about Ben. He worried about beating Detroit. Smart man. I had him at 50.5, but either way, it cleared. It cleared. Yes, it is. That's one thing. That's one thing that I learned the hard way, bro. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It's a little embarrassing, but let my story be a testament. Okay. So in October or I think it was October, like early October. I went on a hot streak. Swear to God, it was the week that Dallas played Baltimore. I hit on every single bet, and I bet I had 30 plays. And then I hit a same game parlay. That was at that time. I don't do same game parlays. And I was like, you know what, bro? I feel really good about this game. I know that Dallas finna get boat raced. They did at one point, and Dallas came back, which is what I needed because Dak Prescott had to hit his number. Let me put it in the same game parlay. Came up on that. End of the day, I end up cashing on that day for $1,500. Not even a lotto play. All my bets hit. Parlays, streets. Long story short, I keep building on the bankroll. I hit a couple more parlays as the weeks go by. I'm withdrawing, of course, but after I hit a couple, I end up having I have a good amount in the bank in the bank account, about 2,000 at one point. And this is before I know about units. I don't take the unit seriously, the unit betting and managing my bankroll. Long story short, I end up a few weeks later losing all of it. Betting on straight bets and parlays, big money. Losing. I lose all the bread. Lose all of it. But as time goes by, I get back out there and I come up big again. But this time I manage my units. So to the point of what we were talking about earlier and why I didn't play that parlay is exactly why I learned my lesson. I think it's a good bet, but yeah, let me go ahead and have some discipline. So if y'all are gambling out there, understand if you don't have bankroll management, you can fuck around, be just like me, a person who has no discipline and no structure to how much he's supposed to bet on one play, and your bankroll can be shattered just like that. All right, let's keep going. Compared to last season, assuming what he say? I'm worried about J-Mo for real. He might torch us. J-Mo is a problem. He's a problem for every team. The way they use him on end arounds. They use him on the third level. He got it. He a dog. And honestly, I don't see anybody the way they use him is how do you want to because he can take the top off the defense. So it's like, how you want your safeties to play? Do you want them to play 20 yards off the ball when he's on the field? And if you do that, you losing a person up front in the box. I mean, technically, if you do single high, I guess you can kind of go from there. But if you do single high, I hope your corners hold up. And honestly, funny enough, like I think that Washington's corners, I think that Amon-Ra is going to be a problem. He's physical. He's not super fast, but he's physical. And you're going to need somebody athletically who can keep up with him. And the reason why I say this is because, like, Marshawn, boy, he looked terrible last week. But if he was healthy, I would have, and if he had his legs under him, I would have a little bit more faith in him. But right now, I don't know what to make of Marshawn. And somebody needs to be just as physical as Amon-Ra against Amon-Ra. And I like Sanders still. He's just low. And he ain't gone up against no Amon-Ra yet. I don't think he's not capable of the challenge, but it's like, boy, if they you gotta handle business, bro. So I don't know. It does provide a challenge because how you want your safeties playing, and things like that against Jameson Williams. I'm not too sure, but you definitely don't want to be the team that gets beat over the top. Like he's put several teams on highlight reels. One of the best plays this season, if y'all didn't watch the Chicago Bears against Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears at home, Jared Goff threw this beauty, bro. Like beauty, like 70-yard pass where Jameson had like 30 yards to track the ball down. And he smoked the cornerback. He smoked the safety and got under the ball, bro. Housed it for like 70 yards. Look, matter of fact, let's see if we can find it. Let's see if we can find it. Jameson Williams, Jared Goff, Bears touchdown. Oh, yeah, here you go. 82 yards. That joint was 82 yards.
He makes that decision very quickly, which is what you need. Don't dance in the backfield at that running back spot.
Goff on first down, firing downfield for Williams. He's got it. Jameson Williams into the end zone. Touchdown. 82 yards.
See if they show the replay.
Jameson Williams is ridiculously fast, and there's Tyreek Stevenson. He's playing off man. Jonathan Owens, they both underestimate how fast Jameson Williams is.
Smoked him. I don't understand how they let that happen. But he smoked them. And that's why I say, like, are you gonna have the safeties play 20 yards off the ball? Like, they got to be disciplined, bro. Quan got to be disciplined. That's your post safety. What up, Peacecraft? Good morning. This upcoming game is a franchise altering game for both Washington and Detroit. I think it's a franchise altering game for Washington. I think Detroit is good enough where they're going to be contending for a little while. But I say altering for Washington. This is a franchise altering game for them due to the simple fact of their reputation the last 20-something years. Now, granted, their narrative has slowly changed over the course of this season, but if you pay attention to how nationally or outside of the Washington market, people are talking about Washington, there are several people that still does not believe how good Washington is, or if they're that good at all. And that's completely, I think that's completely fair from outside of the Washington market. But like, how many times does Washington have to prove themselves is the part where it's like, are y'all not paying attention to what they're doing? Do you not understand like how good Jaden is just yet? And I think that is the part where it's like, if Washington goes on the road and beats Tampa Bay and Detroit in one playoff, that's what it's called, in one playoff. Like, how are they not good? Like, if y'all listen to all 32, I had Detroit coming out of the NFC. I also had no idea that Washington, at the time that I said it, I had no idea that Washington could potentially cross paths with Detroit. And I'm in full homer mode. So now I don't even know if I have no idea what Detroit is going to do because they standing in Washington's way. But anyway, it's an alternate game for Washington more than it is Detroit, in my opinion. I think that's a good statement. But I think it's more for Washington than it is Detroit because you're talking about a team who is like looked at as a rebuild. They didn't use that word internally, but they was looked at as a team that's rebuilding. And you're talking about 13 wins in the first season of Dan Quinn. You get a road playoff win. And you're talking about a team, if you're competing and you have a chance to win at the very end, if you're not already if you don't already have the lead against Detroit and you win that game where all the pressure is on the Detroit Lions rather than it is you, it's a franchise altering game for Washington. Tell them boys we back up. Let them know. It really all depends on Aaron Glenn and what he's going to dial up. The Lions defense showed the Vikings that they can come out in a completely different scheme, looks, play man. How we doing against the number one Eagles defense? Yeah. For sure. But two different schemes. That's kind of the more important part when you talk about certain teams' defenses. Two different schemes right there. And like Philadelphia they don't blitz. They send their forward. Tampa Bay, Detroit, more alike. They blitz. They send pressures. It's the reason why Detroit has the number one seed over the Eagles. Okay, let's go down a little bit. What's up, OG? Kyle Kennard in the draft I think Ben is going to be huge next year. He's learning where if I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna just keep it pushing. Lattimore is our Josh Norman. That's hilarious, but that's wild. What if that's the case? You know what? I don't even want to go there. We ain't gonna do that to him yet. At least Josh was on the field. That's all I gotta say. This can be a St. Jude's redemption game, maybe. Is there hope for Payne and Allen to return to form? Also, is there any scenario you think they cut Lattimore this offseason? Payne and Allen, at this point, they are what they are. But I think if you were here last Friday, I did a film session with Mark Bullock, and we talked about John Allen. What I like about John Allen right now is he is bringing some presence as a pass rusher, right? I like that he's been able to marry his hands in the pass rush with his rush plan, like what he wants to do. And that's important because when you're talking about interior defensive linemen or even edge rushers, period, like some people just go off the ball and they try to beat their man like with pure athleticism on the speed rushes, or like their pass rush plans aren't necessarily that good. John Allen's right now, last I checked, I haven't been able to look at the film against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's been a busy week. I'm actually going to Florida in a couple of hours. But I'm here with the gang first, the Morning Trappers, so we can talk some ball. There won't be a morning show Friday because, I'm out. I'm gonna be out in Florida. We will be here again. We will be here for the post game show though. Tampa Bay, Commanders, Lions. I'll be here for post game. But in that film session that we did with Mark, he was a little rusty. He wasn't there like from his lower body, like his burst or his quickness off the ball wasn't there. He had trouble cornering. Once he did beat a offensive lineman, cornering like after he won his initial move, like getting past him, he wasn't able to do that. And I think for John, like he has mentally what he wants to do. He has his pass rush plan mentally, what he wants to do. He's able to execute it to some extent with his hands, but like marrying his hands with his mind, like his plan and his lower body is something that's still coming along. And I think for Washington, if you can have that interior pass rush presence, it'll be just as good. I mean, it's good against mobile quarterbacks and smaller quarterbacks, but if you can have it against Jared Goff and get him off his mark, like that's going to be love for Washington. And you're going to need John Allen to get that done. You're going to have to hope that Johnny Newton, the youngin, is quick off the ball and he makes some explosive plays. But John Allen is the guy that, when you're asking if they can return to form, I think that's a little broad question. And they've never been good together. They've like taken turns having their year. But like the last couple of years haven't been an indication that, they've like unlocked the secret to becoming consistently good or consistently dominating or game-changing players. That's never been the case. And we've already talked ad nauseum about their impact in the run game. That's just like they can make some plays, but in certain areas where it's like if you're that 3 technique or that 1 technique, good luck in your duo runs or your zone schemes, because you're getting doubled and comboed. So return to form, I don't even know what that looked like. I don't think it's a scenario where they cut Lattimore. I think that they'll be willing to give him another season because it doesn't hurt them financially to keep him on the roster. So I think that they're going to go into this offseason giving him an actual chance to heal up. He's going to have to do whatever he's going to have to do, like from a training standpoint, to make sure that he can physically be ready for next season. But they're going to give him another year. He's going to be a part of their offseason plans in terms of how they build this defense. So, but if he sucks next year, snip, snip. Not going to lie, lines about the target out corners in the run game, probably outside runs, zone schemes. Zone runs, screens, and force our DBs to make tackles. I'm with you, but I also think that these guys can tackle. If there's one thing that the secondary does, they hit. Carl, what's up, player? What's up from Chesapeake, Virginia? My brother-in-law is on the Devived coaches. Devived coaches. Oh, let me run that back. All right, here we go. My brother-in-law is on the defensive coaching staff of Washington. I tell you, this is more exciting than when he actually played for Washington. We can beat Detroit. Oh, all right, hold on. Nah, it's a different link. Let me go ahead and send you. I'm a DM it to you. It's a different studio link. All right, so let me go ahead and now let's talk about special teams right quick, because I think that's a very underrated and overlooked conversation that needs to be had with us. Where is? Okay. All right, so I sent it to you. All right. So there's one thing that we have not discussed that we really need to talk about with Detroit. their special teams is lethal. Yeah, Khalif Raymond is who I was looking for. But Khalif Raymond, dog of a returner. Kickoff, punt. If he's healthy, like, because he's only played 12 games this year. But if he's healthy, like, he's just as explosive as Jamison. The only problem with Khalif is, like, he's 5'8", 5'7". So he ain't going to have the same opportunities offensively that a Jamison Williams is going to bring, right? But special teams wise, that's where Khalif Raymond shines. What up, AJ? Good morning, man.
Good morning. Good morning. What's up, trappers? Trappers.
Yeah, the morning trappers, bro.
Trapping ain't dead.
It ain't, man. But yeah, like, one element to this game that I actually just started talking about. It's something that we didn't discuss yesterday, and it was the special teams. Khalif Raymond is a dog. Their return game and how they can provide explosives in the return game. While granted, like, if you think about for Washington, Jamison Crowder had like a 15-yard return against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, throughout the season, that's good enough for any special teams unit. And Washington has had a solid special teams unit in terms of their return game, their coverage, on kickoff and punt, right? But these guys won a game off special teams by themselves against the Tennessee Titans. And that has been something, an element from as long as Khalif Raymond has been back there, and under Dan Campbell, they've been able to create explosives consistently in the return game. And I think for Washington, while they have been solid as from a coverage standpoint, and they've been good as from a return standpoint, these guys are just as explosive. They are just as good, if not more explosive, than Washington. And I just think that we should at least put that on the radar. And it's something that Washington obviously needs to be focused in on. Whoever the special teams coordinator, what's his name? Izzo. That's going to be his job this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you focus on the special teams aspect, for me, when it comes to Washington, I think you definitely feel threatened, and your gut gets butterflies or whatever when opposing team has a dynamic returner such as Kevontae Turpin, but Khalif Raymond is right along those same lines of a Turpin. So that's somebody that you got to be mindful of. But when it comes to Washington, their kickoff return or their punt return, my main thing is, man, just protect the ball. I can't even lie to you, man. Every time Crowder is back there to get a punt return, I'm so nervous because it always looks like he's about to fumble. Yeah, like even the 15-yard run that you're talking about, it initially looked like he was susceptible to fumbling. I think, man, just key thing is just, staying within your lanes, paying attention to your surroundings, whatever, and don't fumble the ball. You cannot afford to have turnovers on that side. I think it might have been the Dallas game when Luke McCaffrey actually caused a punt return fumble by either being knocked into the ball. I can't remember exactly, but it's kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when Jamison Crowder is back there. Even sometimes Luke, I feel like Luke runs so upright that he allows himself to get like a big hit and that ball could come loose. But the funny thing is, I guess maybe because of the concussion, but they have not put a combination of Luke McCaffrey and Austin Eckler back there on kick return. They're primarily letting Luke handle that, which is cool. But I think that Austin provides a bit more of a dynamic burst in that capacity. But yes, special teams is important. We didn't even get into the kicker aspect, but yeah.
What's crazy?
Going into the Zane Gonzalez has an injury, right? A hip injury.
Yeah, I did see that. I was actually looking at his numbers the other day, and I get the skepticism, but bro, like the dude, What game did he? He had one game. Oh, the Tennessee game. He had missed two kicks, but he's like, I think he's like on the regular season 7 of 9 or 5 of 7. I'm about to look at it. Yeah, 5 of 7 on the season, and those 2 that he missed was against Tennessee. Not that it's a big deal, but it's also a big deal that he really has been perfect out of every game except for that one, including the playoffs. And I'm like, that last one looked shaky, but I get the skepticism from everybody because I don't even like before I had Zane Gonzalez like stamped in my mind. I struggled even keeping up with all the kickers' names. Like I didn't like that's how much of a revolving door it's been. He's been around for 6 games now or 7 with the playoffs. I think it's a big deal. But actually, before I even get to that part, what I wanted to ask, do you kick the ball to Khalif or do you like boot that bitch out that little zone?
Well, it seems
because you know they love to kick it in the zone. That's why I asked. Like they don't waste no time about that. They don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I haven't seen them really try to boot it out the end zone really on kickoff this year. I feel like Zane has the ability to do so with his leg power, but they've been really trying to do a strategic job of kicking it within the zone and allowing their special teams to go and make that play. I personally, if it were up to me, I wouldn't. I just give them the 30. You feel me? Like I just give them the 30.
I think it's 35 outside the zone, right?
Man, it could be 45. Just take that.
Hell no. We ain't giving them that much.
Man,
but I get what you're saying though.
He's such an explosive kickoff returner. Like he's such an explosive returner that if you make one mistake, that could be a house call. Like,
yeah. 400 and I'm looking at the wrong page. 413 punt return yards. So their main returner is actually Khalil Dorsey and Tom Kennedy. I don't know why I thought that Khalif was returning kicks too. Yeah, he's had 1 kick return this year, but all-purpose
he's
yards.
Not doing kick return.
Yeah, he's not doing kick return. It's Tom Kennedy and Khalil Dorsey. Those are their main 2 returners. They both have they're averaging. Well, Khalil's averaging 39 yards of return, and Tom Kennedy. I mean, that's still dirty. And then Tom Kennedy's averaging 27 yards of return. Either way, I don't know. Punt return is going to be a little different. I think Tressway's going to have. He's the answer for all that. So I ain't really worried too much about punt return.
Maybe we don't even see punts in this game.
Maybe we don't, which is going to be a blessing. Offensively, we talked about last show. We talked a lot about Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think before you got on, we were focusing on Jamison. I actually showed the Jameson Williams catch, the touchdown catch against Chicago, where he threw that 80-yard. Jared threw the 80-yard bomb, and he just flew past 2 defenders in the secondary. If there's one element to Ben Johnson that is like unpredictable is actually his play designs and his play calling. Dan Quinn spoke about this on Tuesday, and he acknowledged, a question about his unpredictability. And one of his responses that I thought that was actually pretty important and also impressive, because it's like they're so focused on what they can control and what they can do well. He said that, we can't even worry about what the offensive coordinator brings to the table. And I think that's a perfect response to the question and the concern about Ben Johnson and his unpredictability. But damn it, like if I'm talking about from our perspective, like that's like seeing new shit for the first time can really mess up a defense.
Nah, for sure. I mean, quick little shout out to George. I don't have potato greens, which is a cultural dish from Liberia. But if you're in Atlanta and you serious, you could DM me. My aunt lives out there. She could probably make you some, charge you a small little fee. But at the end of the day, when it comes to not knowing what's coming up next, Dan Quinn is perfectly correct. I mean, all you can do is worry about being prepared and exposing your guys during the week with as much information as possible. Because Ben Johnson is one of those guys where we've seen in games, they've run a crosser. They run a crosser with Amon St. Brown. He catches it and then tosses it right back to Jamison Williams, all in one possession. So it's like, as a defensive player, your mind is racing when you're playing a Detroit Lions from that aspect, because you don't know what's coming next. Like, they're willing to do whatever. They're willing to bring in the ineligible man, not even on the goal line, to possibly complete a pass. Like, they're lining Penei Sewell up at tight end. Like, they're doing all these different things, but the key way to not being so like worrying about those gimmick type plays or these foreign opportunities is stopping the run. Ben Johnson really doesn't get into that bag if he can't really get his plays off and positive yards. Once he gets into that opportunity where they're gaining positive yards on a regular basis, that's when he just starts getting real creative with everything else that's in his repertoire, and they go after it. So that's the key element, is just stopping this run, which I came in here like 15 minutes ago. I heard you talking about like Jonathan Allen and stuff like that, but I just think that that's the key thing, because I guess another element that helps them is having a Bobby Wagner. He can kind of help those guys stay calm, cool, collected, and he'll be well prepared. But yeah, that's why I think this matchup is so intriguing on Saturday. You've had Detroit has had the opportunity to have an additional week of rest, but also preparation for their next opponent. So I do expect to see like some of the plays that I even just mentioned drawn up during this particular game. But that also could play in the favor of Washington. They could be rusty having this additional time off, whereas Washington played some days ago, and that could help with the momentum that Washington has and not having to be delayed in already catching up. They could fire off the ball, and Detroit could take them a little bit more time to get into their groove. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but yeah, you can't worry about what Ben might be doing, because at this rate it could be anything. It's like giving a kid that never played Madden before the controller. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's why you don't plug it up. Just go ahead and let that kid do his own thing, press them buttons, think he playing, but it's the computer. Okay, yeah, I think the one element that I do think is pretty good is the idea of Washington having that advantage of playing in the wild card week. Now, I don't always work, but I also think like they did play against Minnesota that final week too. So it's like it's not like they rested their starters in week 18.
Yeah.
I don't want to think too hard about that, but that is an element. Like typically you can get some slower starts for defenses and offenses. The teams, generally speaking, coming out of that bye week. Hold on, let me go ahead and add the good man Mark to the show. Here we go. What's up, Mark? Good morning, man. Well, good afternoon.
Afternoon for me, but yeah, more for you guys. We can stick in the morning. That's fine.
Hey, good afternoon, Mark. Yeah, it's bright and sunny over there.
Well, yeah, it will be for maybe like 2 more hours. It's 1 in the afternoon. The sun goes down about 3 p.m. here in Sweden. So, yeah, I've got a few hours of sun.
Okay. All right. So we were talking about the momentum aspect of this game against Detroit. Honestly, let's kind of shake up the conversation a little bit, because we did our preview. We won't be able to do like any previews or anything the rest of the week. I'm gonna be out of town, so like let's kind of get your idea or your opinion of what you think about Washington's challenges against Detroit. Now, before you do start, I understood what Tampa Bay meant, and I know that this is going to be an even tougher challenge. But are you on the same side or same idea that Washington has a real chance against Detroit?
As long as Jaden Daniels is healthy, they have a real chance in any game. I will say that, and I will say that consistently as long as Jaden Daniels is in Washington. I think, but I think they have less of a. I thought I thought it was probably like a 60-40 split against Tampa. I probably gave Tampa the edge, maybe 65%. I would say it's probably closer to 75% chance. I would say that the Lions would probably win this one.
75-25.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think that Lions offense is too good at the things that Washington is not good at defensively. Obviously, running the ball, and they will stick to running the ball. They won't get away from that. They won't abandon that. They will run the ball. They will run the schemes that you don't handle very well. And if you somehow adjust to handle those schemes, they will throw other schemes at you to counter that. And it's very, very tough to live with that offense. But as long as Jaden Daniels is there, you've got a chance to make it a shootout, and maybe if you get some of those timely turnovers and you can control the time of possession, much like they did against Tampa, then they can have a chance. But I think it's a smaller chance than what I thought they would have had against Tampa.
So Mark, let me ask you this. So in what you just broke down of the reasons why you believe it's a 75-25 situation of Detroit winning this game against Washington, you mentioned solely the offense, but what will Detroit be able to do to stop and slow down Jaden Daniels offensively? Because it sounds like we might be preparing for a possible shootout.
Yeah, I think that is potentially a chance. I think the thing for me is that the offense for the last few weeks has been essentially all Jaden Daniels. And some of the receivers have helped out. Like De'Ami Brown had a real nice game against Tampa. Zacchaeus had a real nice game a few weeks ago. And obviously Terry McLaurin's always a threat. So they've had some guys step up, and obviously like Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler are reliable, but none of them outside of McLaurin are game breakers. And if you're able to keep a cap on those guys, then it's really all on Jaden Daniels. They've not had any real run game to speak of the last few weeks. And it's just a lot of pressure to put on a rookie quarterback. And I know he doesn't play like a rookie quarterback. I know that's been the whole thing. He's been so calm and poised and been able to handle every situation thrown his way and played his best in those tough situations. But at a certain point, you still have to admit he is a rookie quarterback, and you can't put so much expectation on him that he's going to go into Detroit a second road playoff game in a row against the number one seed and go win a shootout on his own. Like, he needs other guys to step up. And from watching back that Tampa game, as I said, like De'Ami Brown stepped up nicely. But are you relying on De'Ami Brown again? Possibly, but I feel like you're lacking a few other pieces around him, and I think it comes back to the same thing I thought last week, which was Washington. Nobody expected Washington to get more than 6 wins this year. They doubled that, and they're now over double that, and they are way ahead of schedule, and they just don't have the pieces around Jaden Daniels to make this a sustainable offense with the other pieces, not just Jaden. If Jaden puts on his superhero cape and goes, I'm being Jaden Daniels, I'm going to go win the game, then, fair enough, he can do that. But it's just tough to have that be pretty much your entire offense.
I know defensively the Lions isn't necessarily, scaring the public. But how are you feeling about the Detroit Lions to this point so far, defensively, and what they can provide Is there any similarities to Tampa's defense, in your opinion, or like what do they do well, minus Hutchinson at this point, because obviously he's been gone for some time. So like, what do they do well now? Because obviously their big thing when he was there, they can run, they can stop the rush like anytime, any down, whatever. But what do they do well now without Hutchinson, in your opinion? Like what's kind of the thing where it's like, I think we can move the ball on them, but here's that one thing that's kind of like, okay, this is what we really need to look out for. And it may be a coordinator standpoint, who knows? But what do you think?
Yeah, I think Aaron Glenn's done a really nice job with that unit, and he's obviously getting a lot of head coaching looks this year. He got some obviously last year here in Washington as well, but he's kind of stood up, especially this season where they've had so many injuries on that defense. Like it's not just Hutchinson. There was what's the defensive tackle's name?
McNeil.
Yeah. Hang on, sorry, my laptop's going. Let me ignore that for a second.
My bad.
Yeah, sorry. So they've lost and they've lost some. I think they lost a couple of corners and some linebackers at some point. And I know they've had some guys back as well. They've obviously had 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a tough. They were in a tough spot, and Aaron Glenn has managed to paper over those issues with scheme, and they've been able to largely maintain what they like to do defensively, which is play quite aggressive coverage, be able to add blitzers if they want to, but he's mixed in some different looks as well. And you see the kind of things that are very popular among the league right now, where teams like to mix in some sim pressures where it makes it feel like there's more than 4 rushers, but it's actually only 4. You just don't know where they're coming from, and you play some zone coverages behind that. So they do a good job of mixing those things in. So I think Glenn has done a really good job of papering over those cracks that they've had in terms of injuries, but also coaching up the next guys and getting the next guys ready to kind of fulfill the roles that they had. And obviously Hutchinson's a big loss because he added a lot, both as a run defender on the edge, but as a pass rusher off the edge. So they've had to do some things with the pass rush in terms of blitzers and stuff to make up for that lack of Hutchinson. But Glenn's done a really good job of scheming things up around that. And so, yeah, I think that'll be tough. But I do think they can move the ball. I do think they can score points. I just don't know if they can keep
score
up
more than Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know if they can keep up with what Detroit. I mean, I said this last week. I didn't see how Washington's defense could hold Tampa to less than 30, and obviously they held them to 20. So I could easily be wrong, but I think Detroit's offense is another level, and I definitely don't see how they can hold them to less than 30 this week. But who knows? Maybe a timely turnover and Jaden dominating time of possession helps them, keep it to a similar game to last week.
Hey, what do y'all think about this is off topic from the actual game itself. Ben Johnson wanting Sam Howell as his quarterback. Did y'all hear about that conversation?
I saw a note on it on Twitter last night or something.
Yeah. There was
I try to block out any Sam Howell conversation. He's definitely muted on my Twitter profile.
Oh, you still got him muted? I know you did it.
Wait, it's never expiring until I expire.
Yeah, man. It's part of the message that Dre sent us yesterday, AJ, in the chat about the message that he got from
okay.
Yeah. But it was the conversation stemmed from a report that Ben Johnson wanted Sam Howell, and the powers that be in Washington was like, man, get the fuck up out of here. We don't want Sam. And they turned the plane around. But what do y'all think? Do y'all think what do y'all think about that? I don't want to insert my opinion. Do y'all think that's any truth?
I mean, I'll jump in there and I'll be like, nah, I don't think that's credible at all. I mean, for just look at the dynamic of how the interview process even went for Ben Johnson. So to sit here and say that he had a preference of quarterback is like he didn't even have a preference of a job, yet alone a quarterback. So how can I give grievance to, oh, Ben Johnson wanted Sam Howell, and that's kind of what, made everything go away and play out the way that it did. But, the funny thing about life, man, uh, there's blessings in disguise. And Washington ended up, getting Dan Quinn as a head coach for this team. And they went on to not only be a successful, productive team, but they won a playoff game, which we haven't seen since, what was it, 2005?
06. Yep. 2005
Yeah, since
season.
2005. And they're one game away from possibly playing in the conference championship game.
Mark, what you think? You think Ben wanted Sam?
There's
would it make
obviously
sense?
there's obviously the North Carolina connection, and Ben Johnson. The reports league wide about Ben Johnson seems to be that he wants kind of a veteran quarterback. So I guess that would have made some sense that he obviously has a connection to Sam Howell, and he would prefer a vet that he didn't have to completely start from scratch with. But I'd be surprised if that was the tipping point for it, because they hadn't got to any kind of offseason yet. Like Ben Johnson was still in the playoffs with the Lions, and or had just finished the playoffs with the Lions. He hadn't got into like scouting Washington's personnel and like looking at the draft and seeing which quarterbacks would have been available. And for all we, like, the whole speculation back then was he would have wanted Drake May because of the North Carolina connection. So like, I don't believe the reason that didn't happen was because he wanted Sam Howell. I could definitely see he would have wanted to keep Sam Howell, and I don't think Adam Peters would have been like, no, you can't keep Sam Howell. Like that, a rookie, a guy on a third round rookie contract, or was it fifth round rookie contract, whatever it is. It's that cheap as a backup quarterback is not a bad option to have. And there is still something to Sam Howell's game that some coordinators like a Ben Johnson would like. And don't forget, like, Ben Johnson has turned around Jared Goff from a guy that even like Sean McVay no longer wanted into a very strong quarterback in this league. So I could see Ben Johnson wanting a guy like Sam Howell, but I don't think he would have been like, the only way I take this job is if Sam Howell is my starting quarterback. And I don't think Adam Peters would have been like, no, you can't have Sam Howell on this roster. I'm trading him as soon as possible. So I don't fully buy into that, though.
Yeah, man, the rumors were so weird at the time, and I got a couple that's bookmarked, just waiting for the data to bring it back to the surface, man. It's a person that I actually follow. Always did find the reports weird. I ain't gonna lie, but I ain't gonna put his name out there just yet. But one thing that he said was like conversations within league circles have reiterated that offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury isn't looking to utilize a quarterback as a major portion of his run game, thus detaching Washington from Jaden Daniels. Lo and behold, Jaden Daniels leading the team in rushing.
Yeah,
they drafted Jaden Daniels.
Now.
He's the run game. So like, it's so crazy. And that was dated February of 2024. So much has changed, and so many people have evolved, and it's been an interesting 12 months, nevertheless. Okay, so in that 25%. I know we talk about it ad nauseum. I would say, put it this way. We asked about De'Ami Brown last night, and one of the bigger questions was like from Dre, was, can he duplicate the success that he saw against Tampa Bay? I said yes. AJ said no. What say you, and what's your reasoning?
Do I think he can have like what? What did he end up with that game?
Like
Really?
5 for 80? 5
Yeah.
for 80.
He had a career day. It was eight receptions for
No.
86 yards?
Saying it backwards. Like 5 for 80.
Oh, I thought it was 8.
Well, let me double check. But let's see. He had 5 for 89.
Okay.
5 for 89. So, I mean, that's not like some outrageous performance that like couldn't be replicated, right? So, do I think he could replicate that? Yeah, sure. Like if he gets one deep shot on someone, which he's very much capable of doing, then that can be a big chunk of that yardage. And then you throw a bunch of screens to him, and suddenly he's got 5 for 89 or whatever it was. So, I think that could be replicated in terms of his impact on the game. Like, he had some big catches in some big situations, and the one that stands out was that dagger on that final drive on third down. I thought that was probably Jaden's best throw of the game for me. And Diami made that catch, so that's certainly something. It speaks to that they have grown chemistry together that other receivers haven't. So I think he could replicate that, but I don't think I'm trusting him to be this kind of 1B to Terry McLaurin being 1A. You know, it's not like it's a Jamar Chase T Higgins situation.
He finna be out Jameson Williams. So yeah, it's a Saturday night. Ain't that right, AJ? Baby JMO.
No, not a chance.
Yeah, I'm not buying that he's gonna have some. Like, obviously he could have one good game. I don't feel like I personally don't feel like he's the long-term solution to being wide receiver number 2. Let's put it that way. So yeah, he could have a good game for sure. I feel like probably more than likely we'll go back to seeing the ball being spread around the rest of the guys. Terry might get the lion's share of the targets, and the rest of the guys get 4 or 5 catches each, and 50-60 yards or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thing with Diami Brown to go out on the limb and say that he's gonna replicate what he did last Saturday would be asinine. I mean, we've watched him play wide receiver for 4 years. It's went from certain quarterbacks to now his starting quarterback is his former college quarterback, Sam Howell. He's gonna go off to doing nothing. To even to begin this season with the trade of Jahan Dotson, you expected him to step up to the level that he played on Saturday, and he really hasn't. He's taken advantage of opportunities, especially in the screen game, which was starting to become very predictable. Every time he got a target, it was in the screen game. But last week was an anomaly. Like it's something that we have never even seen from him. He hasn't seen from himself in the NFL. But it's one of those funny situations. Is like, could it happen again? Yes. Life is all about 50-50. Things could happen, things couldn't happen. So yes, that's feasible. But like in the NFL playoffs, man, you have a lot of people that make a name for themselves. Diami is going into free agency as well. So maybe that's what's giving him the extra oomph, the extra confidence to like push through. Hopefully even, this week with how he's played, the reception that he's got. I mean, the Commanders rolled out a whole highlight tape of him on their social media. And just think about it. It was 5 catches for 86 yards. And and he's being talked about in a sense as if like he went for $140 and 3 touchdowns. But, it's just that people have been clinging on to this hope of him being something. And now that he showed a glimpse of that last week, I think that people are hoping that he can replicate some type of production to help out Terry McLaurin. But I said on our show last night, someone that I think that could be in that role that Dami was in last week, as far as being the surprise, like a productive receiver within this offense, is Luke McCaffrey. I think that there might be opportunities for him, and I just threw that out there because the film doesn't suggest so, but like I said, in the playoffs, man, a lot of things happen for a lot of teams. A lot of players make a name for themselves as they go on to runs. I mean, we've seen in the past Nick Foles. We even seen here in DC, even though they lost against Tampa in that playoff game, Taylor Heineke has made a career for himself after that particular game. He's now getting some sufficient money as a backup. Prior to that, he was on a couch, so like literally.
Let me ask you, Mark, why do you think Luke's snap count has decreased as the season went further along?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I feel like McCaffrey has been kind of unlucky. I feel like a lot of the if he had better luck, he could easily have like 300 or 400 yards this year. I feel like.
All right.
There's been a lot of times where Jaden's just missed him and he's overthrown him, and like they just seem to not have a chemistry. And I don't think it's necessarily on Luke. He seems to be in the right spots, and Jaden just kind of sails a throw over him, or just misses him by a yard or something like that. So, or he goes to a different option for whatever reason. So there seems to be something there where Jaden's off throwing to McCaffrey. So I guess they're just trying not to force that. I think going back to De'Ami Brown, I would say De'Ami's done a really nice job of doing some of the dirty work. Obviously, he blocks his ass off, and he's really good in that regard. He wins specific things well. Like, he's obviously a guy that has speed and can win deep on those deep shots. We talked about the screens. He's physical, and he can run like a slant and a comeback and those kind of things. I just feel like there's not enough variety in his game, and he doesn't win on enough things to make him the viable wide receiver 2. And I think that's why when Noah Brown came here, he overtook him pretty quickly, because Noah Brown had a little bit more variety to the game, and he had a lot of the same things that De'Ami had in terms of being physical, willing to block, being a guy that can pick up yards after the catch on those kind of deep overs and stuff, off play action. But Noah Brown has some route running nous to him, and De'Ami doesn't have that, and so De'Ami's kind of limited in the ways he wins, and that kind of restricts him. But I think McCaffrey, I don't really know where they see McCaffrey. They obviously don't see him as an outside receiver, because they're not playing him outside. They almost exclusively play him in the slot. And I think they see him as this big slot, the kind of Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, big slot, power slot, whatever you want to call it, role, where they almost act as a second tight end, and you can get into essentially your 12 personnel offense with 11 personnel. And that can cause a lot of conflict for the defense. If you have a guy that can block like a tight end as a slot receiver and then go run routes like a slot receiver, that the whole Rams offense is built off of that, right? And I think that's what they hope McCaffrey can become. But he's not there yet as a route runner. He's definitely willing as a blocker, and we've seen him do some nice stuff with chipping and stuff, but and a lot of that dirty work, blocking and on screens and chipping and stuff like that. But yeah, he just doesn't seem to have that connection with Jaden, which is odd, because obviously they came in together in the rookie class, and McCaffrey talked about getting in early with Jaden and putting in extra work with him. So it's weird that they don't have that connection. But maybe it's just they need another year to develop that.
Hey, Mual, if I could ask a real quick question. Mark, if you were in Cliff Kingsbury's shoes, how would you call this particular offense on Saturday night? Like, what would be your key elements of scoring points and being productive and even possibly having some productivity within the run game.
Yeah, so for me, the things that have worked best for them in the run game is when they've been able to be really diverse with their gap schemes. In the last few weeks, they've gotten kind of vanilla in what they do offensively with the run game. They've gone to a lot more zone stuff, and part of that is they've had Jaden Daniels after he had that little spell where he was hurt and they didn't really want to run read option and stuff like that. So they got away from that. Now they've gone almost too far the other way, where they're saying, okay, we got Jaden Daniels as a read option threat, so we're just going to run zone and read option off of it. And they haven't blocked zone particularly well most of the year. And so and Brian Robinson's not a particularly great zone runner. He has improved a lot since his rookie year in that regard, but he doesn't always press the hole and create those cutback lanes, forcing those linebackers to pursue. So I feel like there's kind of a mix of bad things going on there. I think when they've been at their best as a running team, they have been really diverse. They've run obviously their GT counter stuff with both the guard and the tackle pulling and running the counter schemes. That's been their bread and butter. That's been probably their best run scheme, but they kind of lean too far into that and not just running the basic counter or guard and tight end counter and power and then mixing up into the wham and the trap plays and getting into some of the sweep stuff and pulling Tyler Biotish to the edge and stuff like that. When they were running the ball really well at the start of the year, they got to this point where basically any lineman or any blocker, including tight ends and wide receivers and stuff, any blocker could pull in any direction. And that meant that the defensive lineman didn't have a clue which guy was going to block on any given play. And that makes it really tough to defend the run if you don't know who's going where on any given play. And the linebackers, especially when they're trying to fit a run, suddenly one guy's pulling on one play, on the next play, the next guy is pulling in a different direction. It's really, really hard to fit that. So I would be looking to try to get back to that run game diversity. It will be tough because the Lions, they practice against the best gap scheme team in the league, which is their own. So they have all of those different schemes in, and they will be used to facing those and fitting them. But I think that's the way Washington runs the ball best at the moment is try to diversify that gap scheme, have all those different things mixed in. Don't just rely on one or two schemes. Don't just rely on zone. Mix in those different gap schemes and then try to build the play action off of that, because they when they were at their best, they had diverse gap schemes, and then they would be able to just pull a guard to fake play action, and everyone would be biting up, and they'd have those big lanes over the middle, which they haven't had recently, because when they pull a guard, nobody's believing they're running because they've been running a bunch of zones. So, I think that's the way I'd go about it. I'd try to start the run game again by diversifying that scheme, setting up some play action stuff. And if all that fails, say, Jaden, I need you
put
to
the backpack on.
Yeah. go with me a game, please. And hope that he can pull you out of whatever situation you're in.
Hey man, 75-25. You lean Detroit. I want to give you the floor to, if you, because I don't know when did you submit your prediction yet? I don't want to spoil it. Okay, do you want to give it now, or
I'm waiting for injury reports this week?
Okay, because I know you typically wait for injury reports.
I already told you 75-25.
I'm definitely leaning Detroit pretty heavily, but I'm not going to give a score prediction until I know who's healthy.
Gotcha. For the sake of the morning show, I'm gonna reiterate mine from yesterday. I said 38-34 Washington. I ain't gonna lie to you, Mark. I am in full homer mode. There is nothing that's gonna stop me from seeing Washington or saying Washington will win this game. There is nothing out there that can convince me otherwise. I have to see it with my own eyes, Mark. I have to see it with my own eyes, and I'm okay with being sad if we lose. I'm okay with that. But right now, I'm all in on Washington winning. I think it does come down to another final drive. And Washington doesn't They don't settle for a field goal. They mess around. Just like that Dallas game, they get that touchdown at the end, and it's ball game. Detroit don't get the ball back. That's what I say. AJ, what was yours from yesterday?
My prediction was Washington was going to win. Score was 37-31. Yeah, that's pretty much where it lays. I don't think I'm on the homer side. I just
fuck that. I'm homer.
Yeah, I just think that this game is truly going to come down to who creates turnovers and capitalizes off of it. Because honestly, I don't know how Washington stops their offensive attack because there's so many different variations of what they can do. Like before Mark came on, he mentioned how Dan Quinn was saying something essentially about just like controlling what you can control because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. But we've seen so many different things from Ben Johnson. I mean, a basic crosser can now turn into a toss play in the midst of that, and Jameson Williams is already running full speed. We've seen ineligible linemen come in and catch passes. We've seen Penei Sewell line up at tight end. Like, it's a lot to process mentally. But at the end of the day, I think that Washington could possibly get some turnovers in this game. There's some opportunities to be had. And that's what could lead them to victory. That's my prediction. Mark, what you'll be watching the game at like 2-3 in the morning?
Yeah, kicks off at 2 a.m.
What does that look like from your standpoint?
You take a nap at 5 p.m.
Like how do you plan out your day? And I think if I'm not mistaken, I want to say in the past you said you were married, right?
No, engaged, but
okay, engaged. Well, early congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How does that work for you? Like, I'm just curious of like how you structure your day. Because I know you probably over there like, oh, please let it be a 4 o'clock game. Please let it be a 4 o'clock game.
Yeah. That's the one downside of Jaden Daniels being so good is they're gonna get.
You're gonna have a lot of this in 2025.
I know it's terrible. Yeah. So typically during the season, what I do is just live on American time. So I live on East Coast time, and I just go to bed at essentially 5, 6 in the morning my time, and try to sleep throughout the day, and then wake up. Basically, live on your guys' time. And then once the season ends, I try to adjust back to normal
That's a hard
time.
adjustment, man.
It is tough. This year it's been slightly more difficult because we have a cat that was diagnosed with diabetes, and he has to get an injection at 6 a.m. every morning. And so that makes it tough to go to sleep at like 4 in the morning and then wake up to do that at 6 and then go back to sleep, and that confuses everything. So this season has been tougher, and I've got my sleeping schedule back to like a normal sleeping schedule of going to sleep at like 11 at night here and waking up at 6 in the morning when we do that injection for him. But the game on Sunday was tough, so I did kind of try to go to sleep a little bit early, get a couple of hours sleep, set an alarm for like half an hour before the game kicked off, watch the game. Was obviously buzzing with adrenaline after the game, so couldn't get to sleep for a few hours after that, and then got a few hours more sleep before waking up and watching the game back on the All-22. So that's probably what it'll be this Saturday. Is I'll probably try to get a few hours sleep before the game, wake up at probably 1:30 in the morning to start at 2. And
you get like a coffee or something. You get something to help you out.
Literally, all I drink is water. Believe it or not. So I won't have any coffee or anything like that. I'm kind of used to it by now. I've been doing.
You don't do no cocaine, nothing like that. You don't do no booger sugar.
Probably just a lot of chocolate to get sugar into the system. But yeah, I'll be up at 2. Well, probably 1:30, ready for 2 o'clock kickoff, and then hope the game doesn't go to extra time. Keep me up till 6 or 7 in the morning. So, but yeah, to go back to your score predictions, I love that you guys are going homer. Like, go for it. Go for the like. They've not been in the playoffs in forever. They don't win playoff games in forever. Go all out. I fully commend you guys going full out and backing Washington to win it. And it's the Britishness in me that is naturally pessimistic, so I have to hold back and assume they're probably going to lose because that is the very British way of doing things. If you know anything about football or English football, soccer, the England national team every year gets built up as, oh, they're going to win the World Cup this time, and they always disappoint. So we have 60 years of that, so that is built into us. So I can't trust myself to back them, but I love that you guys do.
So I wanted to, have you even processed in your mind, like, what if Washington does win this game on Saturday, the fact that they would possibly have one game, they'll possibly be one game away from going to the Super Bowl?
It would be crazy. I have not processed that.
Okay.
I kind of feel like I did think about it the other day, and I thought if they can, this is probably the toughest game left for them in the playoffs till the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because I kind of sneakily think they beat the Eagles if they played the Eagles in the championship game, and I kind of think it'd be a pretty close game against the Rams. I think the Lions is the toughest one. So if they could win this, then I could start thinking a little bit bigger. But I
little 60-40 Washington next week. That's what you 60-40 Washington.
I don't know if I'll ever get to that. I don't think at this point of the year I can ever give the team that I want to win more than 51%. You know, I think that is the British cap that you can put on there. But yeah, I don't want myself to get there yet. I don't want my expectations, my hope to be built up to be torn away. That's too many England teams have let me down in the past for me to have that happen again.
Live in your superstition, man. We got Dre. This is something that, and now that we know AJ, we ain't gonna hear from Dre the whole 3 hours Saturday night. But we got Dre on here who he don't even talk. Playoff game last week, he ain't talked to us the whole game. He cut his phone off. And I thought he was drunk somewhere. I was like, ain't no way you drunk, passed out during the game, bro. That's impossible. But live in the superstition, do whatever it takes for Washington to get to the next round. I get it. But Nilla, I know you said Commanders cover. Guess what? I got the over. I already put the play in. I don't know if I can gamble in Florida, so I'm making everything done today and yesterday. But I got the over. Obviously, last week was a little different. But this thing, I think this one really gonna be a shootout. Okay, Mark, AJ, welcome to the Morning Trapper side. You know what I'm saying? I know you was in the chat last week, but you really in here on the show this time. I ain't think you was going to wait. You actually woke up before 7.
Hey, this is my first and last appearance on the Trapper Dial morning show.
Okay, fair enough.
At least I was just playing, but at
least you showed face.
It was a pleasure coming on here this morning, Mark. Appreciate you for always joining us. Always good to talk ball. And I think I'm on here with two of the most knowledgeable guys in the Washington Commanders space as far as like the analytics and actual film session breakdown. So, yeah, I think it's a blessing to be able to have these conversations and help fans and whoever's tuning in, whether you're a Washington fan or NFL fan, get to understand the dynamics and the different lingo that is used on a regular basis within these NFL walls and stuff. So, yeah, man, it's definitely been a great show. Mark, as always, appreciate you. And go ahead, check out his Substack and subscribe. And, yeah, hopefully we can circle back with you, Mark, Tuesday, and we're talking about a victory and possibly being one game away from Super Bowl.
That'd be great. I'll be here. I'll tell you what, if they win this weekend, I will be here whenever you guys want.
Hey man, we might have to do a show Sunday.
Hey, maybe or Monday for the studio. We can still do studio Monday, bro.
The city is gonna be on fire.
Fly Mark out. On your dime, AJ.
Hey man, we gonna have to make some, like, if it happens, this city is going to be so electric. And unfortunately, we have an inauguration of someone, but yeah, it's gonna be electric.
Nah, this song gonna be crazy. I remember this is the last thing for me, bro. I remember that one episode, bro, when ownership changed. I was so nervous. I was like, bro, I don't know if I'm gonna get my fandom back. And I went on this whole little soliloquy on the show. I was like, bro, like I don't know if I'm really gonna reach that peak to like where I felt like the days where I felt like I was out there for them boys. Like when I was young in high school, middle school, like I was all in on a burgundy and gold. Like one shit you could tell me. Like I wasn't trying to miss the games for nothing. I had all the emotions tied in. And AJ said one thing. He's like, bro, when they start winning again, it's gonna come right back. and when I tell you, bro, like the whole season, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's all I was thinking about. AJ. I was like, bro, you know what, bro? Shit ain't been the same since these boys got Jaden, bro. Shit ain't been the same. All right. We up out of here. Hey, everybody enjoy y'all weekend. Stay safe. We will be back for Commanders Lions post game. Peace. Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Damn, set, watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive, this is Trap or Die.